Hello, I'm Laara Copley-Smith and Fiona is with me today, and we are talking about women and money. And we've talked about, touched a little bit on poverty, 80% of women in poverty as they go into retirement. And today we are going to talk about over delivery, aren't we? I'm going to hand
We
it over
are.
to you.
So we were talking about different habits that we develop in childhood that can impact how we do money. And one of the things that we're talking about was perfectionism or over delivery. And I did my little Google today, and they say that perfectionism can be quite complex, and it's actually a desire to avoid judgment, to please people, and it can be accompanied by fear of failure. And people who are perfectionists can be their own worst critics. So I might think something's beautiful and the person that's created it doesn't think it's up to scratch because of perfectionism. And it's often linked with parents that are perfectionists, but not all the time. It's more how we've learnt from parents. It can create depression and anxiety for the perfectionist, but there are also positive traits. So people who are perfectionists have high standards, they can enjoy growth, challenges and problem solving. It's only when the perfectionism is causing problems with over delivery and of course not helping us get ahead financially. Now I believe that this is a little issue habit of yours. Would you like to share with everyone?
Well, it could possibly be. I am definitely a perfectionist. And I wouldn't say that I've ever gone into depression or anything like that with it. I'm too much of a glass full person. Even when it's empty, I'll find goodness there. I'm more of a person who would go into exhaustion with perfectionism over delivery. So I've actually made a few notes. So I definitely a fear of failure there is in for me in and possibly and probably a fear of being judged. And these do link back to my relationship with mainly my father, I would say. Yeah, high standards, always like, I'll just do a little bit extra on that project, or I'll just, is it perfect enough? So always judging what you're delivering, and too much. And I would say a definite positive is that you're always reaching to expand as a person, step to another level, and learn and just grow. So that is a positive element. And so for me, that would definitely be linked to the father-daughter relationship. I mean, my father was, I wouldn't say he was a perfectionist, but he was a workaholic. I haven't really looked at why he was a workaholic, but he had a lot of emotional relationship disasters, and it's possible that he headed over into the work zone as as a way of taking away from his own emotional stuff. And he was a very closed person emotionally. So, you know, I can see in my childhood that I kept thinking, if I do a bit more, if I deliver more, if I'm good, which strangely enough, I wasn't particularly very good. I was a bit of a rebel, but maybe I got fed up with trying to get his attention in a good way. So I headed over to rebel rebel land to get his attention. And for me, because he had quite a lot of failed relationships and marriages, I see that there was always a part of me as a child of thinking, well, was that me? You know, was that my fault? What didn't I do? So that I can see how that connection of that perfectionism developing in me as a woman was all linked up to that. You know, the mother leaving when you're young is I would think for most children going to leave an element of, did I do something wrong? Why did my mother leave? And in terms of money, you know, the over delivering, you're going to be undercharging as well. You know, if you're going to be spending more time on projects, not charging enough. And I would say that undercharging anyway was a bit of a thing for me. Not knowing when to stop on a project, which I've already mentioned, and just not having that sort of a full view of your own value and what you actually bring to the table. I think those would be key elements. What else? I don't know. Have you got any questions, Fiona? I'm quite happy.
So, have you managed to do anything with the over delivering, the perfectionism? How have you worked that with money? Have you got a handle on it yet, or are you still working on this? Where are you at with it?
I would say with the over delivering and the perfectionism, I think to a degree that is something that I probably will always do, just because it's how I am, you know, and I like to deliver the best that I can. So I'm always reaching for more. I would say on the element of where to stop, I'm much clearer on that. You know, it's kind of when you become more aware of your pattern and of things that you've done in the past, you get to a point when you're working on something and you think, I'm complete. This is I can stop now. You know, I'm going to stop now. So I'd say that when I'm working on things, I know much more about when it is the right time to stop. But I always have that leaning towards perfectionism. And
so I guess financially, have you managed to balance that out financially, or is that still an issue?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it's still an issue. I think that earlier in my sort of design career, because I've been in design for 20 plus years, I would say that earlier in that career, it was more of an issue. That I didn't know my worth. I do know my worth. And so I would say that I'm much clearer on that. But I also think for perfectionists, there's always more that you can have realizations about. You know, I think it's a very what's the word for it? It's a leaning that isn't easy to pull yourself out of.
But I imagine that knowing your worth is huge particularly around money, because then you can charge a reasonable amount and not going to live in poverty. That's probably where the issue is the self-esteem, knowing I'm worth this.
Yeah, and I actually think that you know, the perfectionism and the self-worth, you know, having confidence in yourself as a woman is key. So, you know, they're kind of interlinked, aren't they, actually? So if you've got I wouldn't say that I went through my life not having confidence, but I do see how those things are interlinked. And as you become more self-aware as a woman in business and become more connected with your worth in business, then you can sort of break those chains that are linked to undervaluing yourself. You may still be the perfectionist, but you're not undervaluing yourself.
Yes. I can relate to that, and I think that there was a point where I felt my skills had reached a level where I felt confident with the skills, and then I felt I could charge a decent amount. I think that's also part of it, knowing your value, but also knowing that your skills are at a good level. Once they're at that level, then you can say, yes, I'm worth a good amount.
And I think all of, you know, the dynamics of that do also link back to kind of how we're nurtured as children. You know, if I think about the sort of open love or affection that was ever given to me, well, one, the mother was gone by the time I was one, so there wasn't that nurturing in that capacity. As I said earlier, in an earlier video, there was only, you know, my grandmother, the Margaret Thatcher, counting the money in the little country pub that we had. Two, my father was very absent emotionally and was actually quite angry that a lot of his relationships with women had, oh, I've just remembered something, how his relationships with women had broken down. So he found it very difficult to express his love for his children. Actually, he pretty much told us off all the time, which probably just took us more into rebeldom, rebel land. But I look very much like my mother, so I can, and I even have the same facial sort of expressions. You know, when they say you're turning into, you know, you are your parents. It's scary. I can see how he could see my mother in me, you know, looking back now. So I was a reminder of his, you know, his own experience and brokenness. So I think that when you don't receive that nurturing, that you're achieving things while you're growing up, then you're bound to have a completely dislocated or disconnected experience of what your own value is. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely. And also I can see how you go from rebel to perfectionist pleaser, like you go between the two. This one gives me some attention. No, not anymore. This one's giving me some attention, whatever's, you know, giving you some attention. Or even the rebel might even be, I give up on getting attention. But I can see why you go between the two quite easily. And I can see how it would totally impact business and money as well.
Oh, totally. And I think that it's only when you start to explore those things, and you know, it was only very close towards the end of my own father's life that he gave recognition of what he saw in me. You know, I mean, that's huge. It's like, crikey, couldn't you told me when I was like, you know, 16, 17, 20? Yeah, that I don't know about now. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure it happens for young children and teenagers now and young adults now, but you know, that has such an impact on how somebody comes into their life and is going to affect everything, especially, you know, the money and the relationship dynamics it's going to affect. So I was northern, you know, a northern family, very close, on emotions. English,
Right.
stiff upper lip. I don't know about you and you know, your country. Countries are quite different, aren't
We'll have
they?
a little bit of stiff upper lip because we do have a bit of a British background. We're very multicultural now, but we're very aware of the stiff upper lip British background is.
And have you ever been in that over delivery, undervaluing?
I have, particularly in my early horse career, but I wouldn't say I'm a real perfectionist, but yes, I have done the over delivery and undervaluing it. It took me quite a while in my business to actually value, what I was doing. So I think it's got a lot to do with self-worth and self-esteem. So we'll talk about my history another one. But yes, definitely. So there you go.
Yeah, self-love, self-acceptance. That they're very much wrapped around that, and we are going to talk about self-love,
and it all interweaves. But yeah, we'll have other topics for other videos. But I do think it's very important for women to look at the over delivery, the perfectionism, making sure that they're charging what they're worth, or pretty close to. Obviously, if you're going to spend an extra 3 hours on something and that's way above people's price, then you need to work out, what you're going to do with that. But I think part of this whole video series is making people aware, and then what they do with it. Then it's like, oh, okay, yes, I do that, and I'm going to start watching that now and seeing if I can just edge that off, or do something about it, I guess, is what we're really aiming at.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And by us sharing sort of the more factual side, and then the stories that we have that we're open to share, then it kind of gives a space for other people to maybe have those aha moments, and that actually it's safe to explore this stuff, and even just sort of sharing it and looking at it. It doesn't need to be an element that you get stuck in that same cycle. In that recognition and speaking it, you can kind of move out of it, can't you?
It is amazing. Just being aware will often change things. It's quite amazing. Yes, you can do lots of work on it and read up in perfectionism and over delivery and go for counselling and do whatever you need to do. But often I find just that awareness starts to change things.
I think awareness is key, because you can actually go and have, counselling and over talk about things, and just get caught in that hamster wheel,
Exactly.
redoing it.
So I'm wondering, I know we were talking the other day about doing some tapping. Do you want to do a couple of things of tapping?
We can.
You don't have
to. We can. I'm a bit of a rebel, aren't I? So I'll tap anywhere, but I'm going to let you lead it.
So the tapping I learned, and there are different varieties of tapping, are on acupuncture points. So I learned which is byway. So, or you could start with the karate chop. Even though would you rather say perfectionist, or even though I over deliver? What language would you like to use?
Probably, even though I'm a perfectionist, comes quite easily out of my mouth.
So even though I'm a perfectionist, I totally, completely, utterly love and approve of myself, whatever the words are, but we'll just go with this lot for today. And then you can do that a few times, even though I'm a perfectionist.
Even though I'm a perfectionist, I love and accept myself.
Exactly. And I do here on the side of the inside of the eyebrows, even though I'm a perfectionist.
Even though I'm a perfectionist, I love and accept myself.
On the side of the eyes, even though I'm a perfectionist.
Even though I'm a perfectionist, I love and accept myself.
And under the eyes, the other side of the nose.
I think I've gone a bit rogue now. Even though I'm a perfectionist,
we'll just do this, and then you can tap how you want.
I love and accept myself.
And then above the lips, so even though I'm a perfectionist.
Even though I'm a perfectionist, I love and accept myself.
And on the chin. And then the other one's the collarbone, so just under the collarbone, that's an acupuncture point. And the last ones are under the arms. So you can It's a pericardium. So you can repeat that. You can always give yourself like a number out of 10. Yes, I'm feeling like I'm an 8 out of 10 perfectionist. Do it a few rounds. And you can also alter it, even though I'm a perfectionist, I love and approve of myself, you know, and now I'm releasing as you go through it. Now I'm releasing my perfectionism. So you can change the languaging each time around.
Now I'm releasing my perfectionism. Now I'm releasing my undervaluation of myself. That's a bit of a long word, but and the thing to know is that when you do exercises like this, it can bring up emotion. So you can be partway through that and repeating it again and again. And at some point it may actually shift that emotion. And it's really important to just allow that, isn't it? You know, because that
you can even address the emotion, even though I'm feeling really sad. Yeah, I can release the emotion. The other one I do is the letting go of David Hawkins. So it's just a, you know, perfectionism, breathe in, and then a slowly letting out, and intentionally letting go of the perfectionism or the undervaluing, whatever the language is, and breathing in again. And then breathing slowly out, releasing the undervaluing. And I find that really amazing. The whole letting go, reminding yourself I'm letting go of undervaluing.
The breathing is very calming. It's very useful to do after the tapping, isn't it? You know, putting both of your feet on the ground, grounding and centering.
And I find that letting go, I've been practicing the letting go, and you might be doing it in one area of your life and then you start doing it in others, and it actually has a ripple effect through your life. It's quite powerful. So that's a new little technique I've been using for a few months now. Very powerful. So I really love that, learning about your perfectionism and your undervaluing and how you've gone with it. And I hope it inspires some women to have a look at whether it's affecting their money habits or not, and maybe take a look at it.
Yeah, most certainly. And if there's anything that anybody would like us to talk about, whether you're a lady or a man, then please do reach out to us, and we're very open to talk about all sorts of subjects regarding relationships with money, aren't we?
I agree. Thank you, Laara.
Thank you very much, Fiona.
Bye.